Welcome to Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell. In this program, Rabbi Bell presents a clearer understanding of prophecies, past, present, and future. In this time of utter confusion and dread, tune in to Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell for greater insights of the truth of God's Word and God's prophetic timing. Now join us and let's learn together. And now, Rabbi Joe Bell.
Shalom. This is Rabbi Joe. Welcome to Bible Prophecy Now. It's great to have you with us. I've got a lot of stuff for you today, so we're going to get right into it. Just do want to tell you we had a fantastic prophecy conference. If you missed it, hope you'll come next year. If you saw it, if you went to it, tell a friend how much you enjoyed it. We had about 1,000 people at the Meadowview, and Jonathan Kahn and Jonathan Burness and Marty Getz and several others, and it was just fantastic. Then we followed it up with a healing service last Saturday, and we had 2 people get out of wheelchairs. We had a man with knees like tree stumps. He couldn't walk, and he was able to walk after we prayed over him. God touched him. Many people were touched at the healing service. I'm going to be announcing more healing services on the coming weeks. We'll start having them on Friday nights, maybe throughout the summer. Maybe we'll start out with one Friday. If it works out well, we'll go to a second Friday. Okay? But anyway, let's get right down to it. So today's message is, would America exist without Israel? Would America exist without Israel? Recently, former governor and current U.S. ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, made the statement in response to Vice President J.D. Vance, who said that Israel would not exist without America. Ambassador Huckabee replied that America would not exist without Israel. It's kind of a which came first, the chicken or the egg scenario. But actually, I hope to make it much easier for you to understand than that old chicken and egg cliche. First of all, when you talk about Israel, you're talking about a 4,000 plus year old country. So that answers it right there. Of course, Israel existed long before America was even fairy dust in the minds of anybody. Israel was a country. And Jews have lived in the land of Israel for 4,000 years since Abraham. The descendants of Abraham and Abraham have been living there even when it wasn't run by the Jews. When the Greeks controlled it, when the Persians controlled it, Jews have always lived there. Okay, it's not like the Jews left and then came back. Jews have always lived in Israel. All right, so let's go on. So first of all, when you talk about Israel, you're talking about a 4,000 plus year old country written about in 2 primary books of the Bible, the Tanakh. Everybody say that with me. Look at your neighbor and go, Tanakh. No, don't look at your neighbor and do it. But just say Tanakh. That's an acronym for the Torah, the prophets, and the writings of the Old Testament, also known as the law. Mostly written by Moses, King David, and the prophets, King Solomon. The second book is the New Covenant Scriptures, written nearly 2,000 years ago, mostly by the Apostle Paul, the Apostle Matthew, the Apostle Mark, Luke, James, John, and Peter. Either way, these books are both ancient Middle Eastern manuscripts. You have to realize when you're reading the Bible, you're reading either one, either the Old and New. They're both ancient Middle Eastern books, and they've been translated into numerous languages, and English wasn't one of the first ones, let me tell you. They didn't, Tyndale was the first one to translate it into English in the 16th century. So it was almost 1,600 years, 1,500 plus years after the New Testament was written that it was actually spoken and written in English. It's a long time. So anyway, let's see here. So either way, these books are ancient Middle Eastern manuscripts canonized as scripture by all of the church, with the older covenant or the Old Testament scriptures canonized by the Jewish people, even though both books are Jewish. The Old Testament and the New Testament are both Jewish books, are primarily focused on Jews, written by Jews, and teach us about the greatest Jew who ever lives, Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. Now some will say Luke was a doctor and he was a Gentile. It's possible, but 99% of the Bible was written by Jewish people, okay? Or people who were the ancestors of the Jewish people, the direct lineage of the Jewish people. Abraham, Moses was a Jew. And so anyway, the apostles were Jewish. Jesus was Jewish. He still is. So sadly, this question, as I said, both books are primarily focused on Jews, written by Jews, and teach us about the greatest Jew who ever lives. Notice I didn't say lived. The greatest Jew who ever lives. Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus of Nazareth, Jesus the Messiah. Sadly, this question between the two leaders, Mike Huckabee and J.D. Vance, I have mentioned, has caused a flurry of hatred toward Jewish people and the state of Israel on social media, and President Trump's blaming Israel for fighting back against Hezbollah when they attack Israel with rockets and drones. Israel has no choice but to defend their country and their people. Now, I've been there 12 times to the border of Lebanon, and literally you can stand 200 yards from the border of Lebanon. I mean, you can see the villages. You can see the houses. If you had binoculars, you could probably see the people. I've been to the border of Syria a dozen times. I can see Syrians and their villages and stuff. If I had binoculars, I could see the people. I mean, that's how close we're talking. We're talking maybe half a mile away. I mean, that's how close they are, the southern villages of Lebanon. And for those of you who don't know, Lebanon was a Christian country. It was Christian, majority Christian 25 years ago. And then Hezbollah, which are the radical Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, they took over. They killed the Christians. Many Americans don't understand this, that the Hezbollah killed the majority of Lebanese Christians. In fact, back in the 1970s and 80s, it was the Lebanese Christian militia, you can look it up, the Lebanese Christian militia that fought the Muslims with Israel. Alongside Israel, they fought the Muslims until finally Israel was forced to leave the country. I don't know why they left, but Israel decided to leave the war, and sadly, the Arab Christians were killed and destroyed, most of them. And today, the country of Lebanon is majority Islamic fundamentalists, Jew-hating, and all those wonderful Lebanese Christians that used to live are a minority now. It's terrible. So anyway, that's the history in a nutshell, and you should look up, Lebanese Christian militia, and you'll read the story. So anyway, so there's this blaming going on for this war. So what happens is that the Hezbollah, Israel does not shoot missiles at countries or rockets that don't hit them first. They don't send drones into Syria. They don't. Okay, I will say there's one exception. When there's a target, like a terrorist, like that they want to take out, or if there's chemical weapons. People say that the chemical weapons in Iraq weren't there. Well, they were in Iraq. They were driven 3 or 4 hours to the Syrian border, and the Israelis found them in warehouses, and they identified them, the biological weapons that Saddam Hussein had, that everybody says George Bush was wrong about. He wasn't wrong. Saddam Hussein just moved him over to Syria. And Israel bombed those depots to destroy the biological weapons, which Assad, the former president of Syria, was using on his own people. He was killing his own people. So Israel, anyway, when Israel's attacked, they're going to fight back. So I've been there. I've seen it. Israel does not fire missiles into villages. They don't hit apartment buildings just willy-nilly. They're not like the Russians who are just blowing up Ukrainian apartment buildings and just let bombs blowing off and killing all kinds of civilians. Even the Arabs, Iranians, fire missiles into Israel. The Yemenites, the Houthis, and even Hezbollah and Hamas have shot rockets. They don't care where they land. They even have killed Arabs. You can look that up. Google it. You know, have Lebanese rockets or Iranian rockets killed Arabs? And they have. They've hit Arab villages and killed their own people. So they don't care who they kill, honestly. So let's go on. Israel is a tiny country, and they have no choice but to defend their country for their survival. Israel is a tiny country surrounded by vast territories with billions of Arabs, many of whom seek Israel's destruction. As one Israeli prime minister put it, we live in a tough neighborhood. We live in a tough neighborhood. An old friend of mine was a pilot in it for Israel in the 1973 Yom Kippur War with Syria and Egypt. And he used to say, he was asked a question one time at a prayer breakfast I hosted, and somebody asked him, how come you guys are such good pilots? He said, when you're flying over your mother and your grandmother and your children, and what you do, if you do well, you'll save their lives. If you don't, it'll be their deaths. When you're fighting for your very family's lives, you're not just out over the ocean or over the desert. When you're flying right over your countrymen and over your family, you fight like there's no tomorrow. And that was his answer. So Israel's a tiny country surrounded by vast territories with billions of Arabs, many of whom seek Israel's destruction. And so at times things looked very bleak during the 1973 Yom Kippur War. And there was a special about Golda Meir, the Prime Minister of Israel. I think it was on YouTube. You can watch it. It's a very, very well done documentary. And YouTube's not conservative. Not YouTube. Netflix is not a conservative channel. But they did a great documentary about Golda Meir and how she dealt with the 1973 war with Syria and Egypt. At times, things looked very bleak for Israel's survival during that war, but with God's help, we won the war. In fact, Israel has outlasted the Babylonian Empire, the Persian Empire, the Greek Empire, and the Roman Empire. While they have all gone to the dustbin, those empires of history, Israel is a thriving nation. And do I mean thriving? It is exploded with population, with farming, with technology. I mean, it's just incredible. My wife and I were there last fall, right after President Trump made brokered a peace treaty or a ceasefire with Hamas and Israel, and the streets of Tel Aviv suddenly filled with tens of thousands of young people coming out of their bomb shelters to do what young people do: talk, eat, get reacquainted with friends that they may not have seen in 2 or more years of war because they couldn't go out in the streets. But we were there when they were able to go out, and boy, it was a celebration on a massive scale. You couldn't get a restaurant reservation. We had to eat pizza on our first night. We found a pizza place, got a few slices. That's all we could get to eat because the restaurants were so packed with young people and just amazing. Anyway, the Israelis are a beautiful people. They're handsome. The women are beautiful. The men are handsome. And it's just, it's a beautiful country. I encourage you to go there and see for yourself. And go to the borders if you can and watch the rockets come in. I don't know, put your life at risk. I've been attacked by a rocket going into Gaza in 2003. I was greeted, my bus and my tour that I was with was greeted with a rocket as we were coming into Gaza. And that back then, Israel controlled Gaza. Do you know, Israel doesn't occupy Gaza. Israel owned Gaza and gave it. You may not know this, but in 2005, Ariel Sharon gave Israel to the Arabs. In fact, there was no such thing as a Palestinian. Yasser Arafat, the leader at the time, was an Egyptian. Most Palestinians either come from Egypt, Jordan, or Syria. They're not, there's no such thing as a Palestinian anymore. These people are Israeli Arabs, is what they are. They choose to call themselves Palestinians because they want to rebel. They want to fight against Israel. But anyway, Israel gives them jobs, and when they're not fighting, they can make a nice living, but Hamas spoils it. All right, let's go on. So back to Trump and Vance and Huckabee. First of all, I'm going to give you my take on Trump using the F word on Bibi Netanyahu, his greatest ally in the world. You got to remember, it was Bibi Netanyahu, and I'm not a big Bibi fan, I'll tell you that, okay? I think he's a great war president, but he's not super friendly to Messianic Jews like myself. We're not allowed to we have a really hard time getting citizenship. I've been arrested 3 times coming into the country just because I believed in Jesus. I was locked in a room and had my cell phone taken away, and I had just persecution from my own people, going into Israel, and 3 times that happened to me. So back to Trump and the F word and Bibi. Without Israeli intelligence, Israeli intelligence is what enabled the U.S. to know where to strike in Iran most of the time. You see, Israelis have Mossad agents who speak Farsi, okay? They're Iranian Jews, a lot of them, or sons of Iranian Jews and daughters, and they know how to speak Farsi, which is the language of the Iranians, and many of them look Iranian because they're descended. Their ancestors lived in Iran, and they intermarried with Iranians, so they blend in. Americans, we can't do that. The CIA can't do that. You can't send Americans to Iran, but the Israelis have intelligence on the ground. That's how we knew, the Israelis knew where the meeting was, and they fired the first rocket and killed 99% of all the Iranian leadership in one rocket that started the operation. It was Epic Fury was the name of the operation that Trump started several months ago. The war that they had with Iran, the American war with Iran, began with Israel blowing up the Ayatollah and 99% of his top-level leadership. I mean, Israel fought alongside the U.S. perfectly. There were no crashes, no deaths of soldiers. The operation worked beautifully. And Israel was the only country to help the United States fight Iran. Israel backed the United States. No other country, Great Britain, France, Germany, NATO, nobody would help. President Trump begged for help from other countries. Nobody would help but Israel. Remember that. So always tell people that Israel stood by the United States. But Israel is a sovereign nation. We don't tell other countries you can't bomb so and so. This so-called peace treaty that the president has signed with Iran is not going to hold. There's going to be war, and it's not because of Israel. It's not because of Lebanon. I know that Iran is pushing Lebanon, Hezbollah, to keep bombing Israel because they're trying to wedge. It's so obvious. They're trying to put a wedge between the U.S. and Israel and divide us. But if you just look at that, what Iran is trying to do, Iran is not going to have peace with the United States. There'll never be peace. And all they're doing is buying time to rebuild missiles and drones and fight. Now I'm going to tell you why they want to fight. So let's go on. As I said, I'm not the greatest fan of Bibi, but I respect his war. He's a war president. It was Bibi Netanyahu whose intelligence enabled the U.S. to know where to strike in Iran most of the time. You see, Israelis have Mossad agents, as I said, and they're embedded all throughout the country. That's why the very first rocket, as I said, took out 99% of Iran's top leadership in one shot. That's one shot. It even took the leg of the new Ayatollah and disfigured his face and killed his wife and son, which he probably doesn't mind since he's reputed to be gay, and can now be as gay as he wants to because he has no wife and son. Now, I recall President Trump praising Israel for how well the two countries, America and the Israelis, executed their missions without mistakes, helping each other while no other country or so-called ally or NATO country would get involved and help the U.S. But then something changed. Weeks ago, a strange ceasefire began that the Iranians violated dozens of times. They violated the ceasefire, but yet we kept it, our side of it, unless they bombed us or shot us, and then we'd shoot back. It was a strange ceasefire. However, prices have remained high around the world. Gasoline has remained over $4 a gallon in most of the U.S., and around the world it's like $8, $9, $10 a gallon. It's very expensive in other countries, and most of the U.S. until recently, and is high around the world and causing many to suffer. Basically, President Trump he didn't finish the job, friends. He stopped. And everybody's scratching their head saying, why didn't he finish the job? He started in Iran and has let so much time go by that Iran is rebuilding weapon systems they have no intention of stopping. This deal is a business deal for Trump. He views it as a business deal. But for Iran, it's a religious war against, they call the United States the Great Satan. And the USA, they call the Great Satan. They call Israel the Little Satan, the Little Satan. The Iranians believe that war and chaos will usher in the end-time leader that they have this weird belief in. The Iranians believe that there's a guy who's been in a cave called the Mahdi, and his name, he's the 12th caliph, or the 12th imam, and he's a direct descendant, according to the Iranians. I don't think this is true, but he's supposedly a direct descendant of Muhammad, and he's been living in a cave since 875 AD, almost over 1,000 years, almost 1,200 years. 1,200 years he's been living in a cave, and he's going to come out of his cave, and what brings him out is war and chaos, and that's basically, that's the Iranian view, is that war and chaos is going to bring in the Mahdi. He's going to come and he's going to save Islam and the Iranian version of it, and he's going to usher in the end-time leader known as the Mahdi, because he'll come out of his cave and he'll lead the Islamic world into world war against and take over the world for Islam. So all your children and grandchildren will be speaking Arabic and or Farsi, which is the Iranian language. You know, Iran is not an Arab country. It's a Muslim country, but they're not Arabs. They speak a different language. They only speak Arabic because for the Quran. That's the only reason, for religious purposes. But most Arabs, most Iranians don't speak, or a lot of Iranians don't speak Arabic because it's not their language. All right, so the goal of the Mahdi, when he comes out of his cave, is to supposedly to bring the world, convert the world to Islam and bring all nations to submission. Islam means submission. And it's not about money for Iran. It's not money is just a tool for Iran to basically build rockets and kill you and I, to kill Americans and to kill Israelis. So it's a death. When we're divided with Israel, America has no ally except Israel, and Israel has no ally except America. So once America's gone, and it will be, Trump, the Bible says, and this people have been saying about cursing Israel. Well, a lot of people say in Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you, Abraham, and I will curse those who curse you. And in your seed, it says in the Bible, especially in the King James, in your seed, all the families of the world will be blessed. Well, a lot of people say, well, that's not talking about the Jewish people. Well, so you go to Genesis 26, and in Genesis 26, the promise gets narrowed down to Isaac, who is the promised son of promise, not Ishmael, but Isaac was the son of promise of Abraham. And it says in Genesis 26, 3 and 4, God said to Isaac, sojourn in this land, dwell in this land, and I will be with you and will bless thee. For unto thee and unto thy seed, and in the Old Testament, when he says seed, he's talking about your physical offspring. I will give all these countries, and I will perform the oath which I swore to Abraham thy father, and I will make thy seed to multiply as the star of heaven, and will give unto thy seed all these countries and of the earth, and be blessed, because that Abraham obeyed my voice. So we see the seed promise given to Abraham goes on to Isaac. Now, if we go to Genesis 28, verse 4, we see in Genesis 28, all of a sudden Jacob, it says, and give thee, in verse 3, and God Almighty bless thee and make thee fruitful. He's talking to Jacob. And multiply thee, that thou mayest be a multitude of people. And give thee the blessing of Abraham to thee and to thy seed, physical seed in the Old Testament. He's talking about physical seed with thee, that thou mayest inherit the land of Israel, which thou art a stranger with God, which God gave unto Abraham. And Isaac sent away Jacob. That was a promise to Jacob. And so it's mentioned, that word seed. So the seed of Abraham is really the Jewish people. It's narrowed down through Isaac and then to the Jewish people. So when you curse the Jewish people, and even Donald Trump, you're cursing America, you're cursing yourself. God bless you. Don't curse Israel. Shalom.
You've been watching Bible Prophecy Now with Rabbi Joe Bell. Please join us next week at this same time and place for more regarding today's world events and prophecy. To contact Rabbi Bell, please go to www.forzionsake.org. Rabbi Bell's mailing address is For Zion's Sake Ministries, P.O. Box 1486, Bristol, Tennessee 37620. Until next week, Shalom.